All right. Well, I'm just going to say hello and then turn it over to Alyssa. So thank you guys for being here. For those of you who did this last year, it is the exact same of the provider evaluation training. And we are recording it so we can send it out. You can share it with your teams as well. And I will turn it over to Alyssa.
All right. I'm going to share my screen. So I did in the chat, there is the PowerPoint that I'm going to be sharing. Lindsay also sent it out over email. And then there's also the template for the report that I also put into the chat. And Lindsay, we'll need to send that out again because we didn't include that when you sent out the PowerPoint. Okay, and then I just got to get my screen working accurately here. Okay. All right. So yes, we're going to talk. This is almost exactly what we presented last year, but I know some of you are new. Some of you won't need a refresher, but we're going to talk through the annual Project Search Provider Agency Evaluation. And here is our agenda for today's training. We're going to give an overview, kind of some background on why we do this evaluation. We're going to then talk about the evaluation report, of which there are 3 sections: satisfaction surveys, quantitative data, and adherence to VRS placement services. We'll go through putting it all together and then have time for questions. All right, so let's go right to overview. So as you all might recall, every year, each leadership team completes a working agreement. It's where everyone signs on to these are our roles in terms of the Project Search model here at the site every year. Within that working agreement, we outline that the leadership team evaluates the effectiveness of the provider agency annually based on the following criteria. And so this is what I just mentioned. So quantitative data review of the employment outcomes and the retention, so that we have the percentage of Project Search student interns successfully placed by the provider agency every year. We also have what's called adherence to the VRS defined placement and retention services. And that's something we have outlined for all of our community partners that have a contract with us. So it includes monthly progress reports, etc. And then also satisfaction from student interns, family members, and the leadership team. So we'll talk through how we are going to gather all of this information. This gives you a high-level overview of those 3 sections and how it's all compiled in the annual report. So this is the detail I'm going to go through next. This is just something you can refer back to that gives you an idea, like how do we measure these items, the satisfaction surveys. These are the entities that we survey, the data that we want included for quantitative data, as well as adherence to the VRS placement services. You'll see here in the annual report, so we want this completed every year, and we have a template, and we'll review that template again. We ask that each team complete and provide it to us no later than June 30th. And we'll have to make sure we identify who will take the lead from your leadership team in completing the report. We are suggesting that it be the VRS staff because a lot of the data comes from VRS, but it's not meant to be all on the VRS staff to do all the work. It's like a shared responsibility with the team, but that they can help in putting it together. And for our VRS staff here or listening on the recording, I'm here to help support you so you don't feel too overwhelmed too. I don't want anyone feeling overwhelmed by all of this. Hopefully, you know, the way we've had the evaluation report, and for those that did it last year, a lot of it's just kind of plugging in information. So hopefully it's not too hard. So let's talk about that evaluation report. I'm going to open up the report in a moment. As it says here, the VRS staff, that would include the counselor assigned to your site and their manager as needed, you know, needing that support. They should take the lead in making sure it gets done, but everyone is contributing. Again, due June 30th. And please provide the final report, certainly to your provider agency. So reviewing that with them. That includes your leadership team, and then to Lindsay and me as well. So we have copies of all those reports. So let me pull up the report. I'm going to exit out of the PowerPoint for now, just to review that report, that the template that we have that everyone would use. I'm going to make this a little bigger. And again, I had this in the chat, and we'll send it out to everyone over email as well, so that you all have this template. So it's just fillable areas on here. So you would complete which site you are, which provider agency you are evaluating, and the date that you complete this report. We have some background information. Again, just what I reviewed, that we implemented this evaluation, this consistent evaluation, last year was our first official year of doing it this way, because we wanted for two things. First of all, we want to be able to celebrate as a team and celebrate those provider agencies that put in a lot of effort to help young people with their pre-ED services throughout the year and finding jobs. It's the ultimate outcome of all this work that we do in Project Search. And so obviously our provider agencies are brought on through a competitive process. And we want to be able to celebrate with them their accomplishments in serving young people. And also, if there are concerns, we want a fair way of addressing any concerns that come up along the way. So there's no surprises. You know, hopefully, even when you're doing this evaluation report, you know, if there were concerns, it wouldn't necessarily be a surprise, but it's a way to, as a team, have a discussion about, you know, things that have come up. So that's where we have the purpose, again, what I've reviewed, and then we get into the different sections. So the first section is the quantitative data review. So we're looking at, for the report, that for the quantitative data, it's related to the student interns that graduated last year. So as it says, the number of student interns served during the 2021-22 school year that graduated last year in 2022. How many students were in that? How many students graduated from your site last year, completed the program? And then of those student interns, the number that obtained competitive integrated employment with 9 months of graduation, because that's in part of our success outcomes with Project Search. And the percent that gained competitive integrated employment within 9 months. Then we go to the next section, which is adherence to the VRS defined placement and retention services. So, and this is where the VRS counselor will be key, because we have to get data from our case management system, which is called Workforce One. So of the student interns served during the 21-22 school year that graduated last year, how many had a placement plan signed and provided to the student? That's the first thing that we ask all of our community partner agencies to complete when we start the job placement process. So we want to make sure we have that. How many had regular weekly communication attempts? That's another thing we ask them to report on. And then how many had regular monthly progress reports submitted by the 10th of the following month during the entire placement and follow-up services process? And then the next section is satisfaction. So we are using the same, we have a link, and we'll have that in the PowerPoint slide, make sure everyone has that link. So same thing that we did last year. The questions are basically the same that we had last year as well. So we want to give the link to this. It's a Microsoft form, and it allows for, you know, when you go in to say if you're a student intern, if you're a family member, or if you're on the leadership team, and the questions are related to that audience. So for students, we want to look at how many completed, and what happens is I have all the data of the student survey. So I will get all this to you, and you'll just be able to plug it in So you won't have to type all this in. I'll get all that data for you. But we have the student intern survey results. So we're asking them, how happy are you with the amount of time the provider agency staff spent with you? Do you think the provider agency staff knew or knows your skills and understood or understands your needs? Overall, how happy are you with the help you received from the provider agency staff? What did you like most? So it's an open-ended. And please tell us anything you'd like to say about the provider agency staff that helped you in preparing for finding and keeping a job. So then parent or guardian, and it's the same questions. And then scroll down the leadership team as well. So we want to hear from the leadership team on those same questions. And then at the end, there's an overall summary. And so this is where, again, this is where like there's more flexibility in how you as a team would complete this. So you're looking at all the data above and then summarizing what's there and what that's telling you, basically. So from data from the quantitative data review indicates X, and we have some sample language you could use. Data from adherence to the defined placement and retention services indicates X. And then data from all the surveys. And overall, then you would say the data from this report indicates, could be very positive results, which that's what we hope for, and most likely will be the case for most provider agencies. But if there's room for improvement, you could say, and because of this information, our leadership team wishes to continue with the agency partnership as is with no further steps needed. Or it could be take the following next steps to address areas needed for improvement. Any questions about the this report template, first of all?
Alyssa, did we already go over kind of the why?
I did. Yep, I did.
Okay,
say
I missed that part. Okay.
I know, yeah, just to say a few more things about it, and you can jump into, Lindsay. I know there's been questions about, well, why just the provider agency? Why aren't we evaluating other partners or our overall site efforts? And that is definitely something that each team could make a decision to do. Again, the reason we evaluate the provider agencies, they're the only partner that is selected through that competitive process and that are receiving funds to serve each student intern. And so we want a fair way to give them feedback on the services they're providing. And again, if there are concerns, we want a fair way to address those concerns, because that's been brought up in the past, and we just want fairness. And because they are receiving funds to provide the services, we want to be able to acknowledge, most importantly, the good work they're doing. So, and that's where my role comes in from VRS. So I help to coordinate our overall statewide efforts and the consistency of support related to those provider agencies. Is there anything more you'd want to say on that, Lindsay?
Alyssa, I have a question that I don't want to take us on a total bird walk, but about the graduation, the question on there, it's like they graduate within those 9 months, right? So like if they were to graduate earlier, that wouldn't be a penalty, correct?
Right. So the within 9 months is from Project Search. So gain that employment within 9 months of completing the program. So if they graduate early, they're still completing that program. So it would still go within that 9 months.
All right, that's how I would interpret it.
Yeah, great question.
Okay.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the satisfaction surveys. So it's just, I've touched on all of this already, but it's just kind of emphasizing again. So who should complete the survey? So we have student interns, and again, those that completed. Oh shoot, this is a slide I tried to catch everything. So this should say graduated last year, 2022, not 2021. So mark that on there. And then their parents or guardians as well. So obviously, I know this last year I had a request from teams that they could work with the student intern and their family as soon as they got employed, and that like their VRS case was going to close. So I know some of those surveys have already been done. But if they have not yet been done, it would be reaching out to those individuals as best you can. So as a team, you'll want to talk about how are we going to make sure we reach out to everybody. If anyone needs reminders, like well, I won't have names probably, but hopefully the VRS staff will know who they've already given the survey to. And obviously students and families might need more support in completing the survey. So you don't have to just give them the link. You could, over a phone call or a Zoom meeting or in person, go through the questions and mark it for them and within the link. So keep that in mind too, because I know sometimes I would think especially our student interns might need a little more help in completing this. And so any way you can provide that support to them. And then again, we want to make sure each local leadership team member also completes the survey. So as I said, consider how you can help the students and parents in completing. We just ask that you have all of those surveys done by May 30th. So that's the deadline to have those surveys completed. And then I will get you all the results from those surveys after the 30th, shortly after that. So here is the link. So you have that in the PowerPoint slide. The link to that survey is right here. So that's the link you give everybody. It's the same one for everyone. Makes it easy.
And Alyssa, I'm just not remembering this part. Do the surveys originate from the VR counselor or from our instructor?
I think that's going to be up to you all to discuss as a leadership team.
Okay.
Again, who should be reaching out depends on where things are at and who has the most contact with them or most recent. So it really depends on what you all decide.
And Heather, I think before you hopped on, we are encouraging like VRS staff kind of take the lead, but not to do it alone. So that, yeah.
And what we were saying, the lead on is completing the actual report. So getting those surveys done, I think that's a piece of completing the report that you all want to talk through together.
I can't remember last year why we said, oh, it might be awkward for VR to hand out the survey. I can't remember the reasoning why we said that. And so our educational, well, our principal, Stephanie, she actually is the one that sends out the survey link. But then we worked on the report together last year.
So again, yeah, it'd be just a discussion to have among your team and make those decisions together, however you want to do it.
Does anybody remember why somebody said it might be awkward last year?
I don't, Tammy, but I do
remember.
know every site did do it differently.
Differently?
So
Okay.
I think maybe
don't
you guys
remember.
might have determined that within your team, which is absolutely okay. But I know other teams didn't do it that way. Also, so I feel like everybody kind of determined what worked best for their team.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Cami.
So when you go into that link to the form, there's an opening statement. It says, we appreciate you taking a few minutes to tell us about how you feel about the services from the provider agency that worked with student interns at the project search site you've been a part of. The provider agency helps student interns prepare for, find, and keep jobs once they are done with their project search experience. Your responses will be kept confidential, and thank you for your time and feedback. And then we also have on here, because these are the sites that need to complete the report this year. There are a couple sites that will not be completing the report, which includes, help me out again, Lindsay, Embassy Suites.
Mm-hmm. And let me see, we had it the other day.
State of Minnesota.
Yeah, state of Minnesota.
Yes, because you guys are having new providers.
Okay,
Yep.
I was like, I don't know why we're not doing it. but
Because you have a new provider. Remember, we're doing the year before.
Got it.
And just as a reminder to our group, because we have gotten a couple of questions in the private chat of, we do the year before because they have that, they may or may not have gained that competitive integrated employment once they graduate that current year. They have within 9 months of graduating to gain that competitive integrated employment. So I hope that clarifies.
So, and then the-
Yeah, okay, so that makes sense to me then. So we're collecting the data from the
Year before,
before. So if it was, because we had a different provider the year before,
exactly,
we're not evaluating, we would not be evaluating the same.
right, because you're no longer partners.
Yeah.
Right,
Roger
so it is just Embassy Suites in state of Minnesota of our current sites. Our new sites that are coming on, Detroit Lakes and Burnsville sites, Essentia and M Health Fairview. You won't have to do this even next year. You'll be doing it the year after. So this is all just FYI for you. So you know what will be coming. I think it's great though that you are participating or viewing this recording. So you know that this will be coming down the pipe. So
I think
Mike.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I was just gonna talk about what the lady had just a question that was asked earlier, and that was the problems with VRS. And I think it had to do with the fact that most of the students that we had in Project Search from last year are closed, and therefore typically our releases of information, and that was, I think, part of a hang up, if I remember correctly. But
Oh, could be.
That's a
is
good.
that what you were thinking, Cammie?
Maybe, I guess this year we did it differently then. We gave out the survey right away so that before I closed, so that I could prep them for it right away and it wasn't so distant in the past. So we'll see if that improved it this year or not. I don't know. But yeah, maybe that was why we were talking last year, because last year's seemed like an awful long time before that we were reaching back for. So
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, some good feedback we got last year. So we'll do that again this year. We'll open it up right away again so that you can have these surveys done with the students and their parents or guardians sooner. Okay. I already reviewed when I showed you the report, the questions that are asked, but they're all on these slides so you can look back on it. These are the questions we asked the student. These are the questions we asked the parents and guardians. And these are the questions we asked the leadership team members. They're all pretty similar, just flipped a little bit based on the audience. So getting your results, as I said, I will get them to each team by Monday, June 5th. So take some time and get it all, and I'll plug it into the report template for you. So you can just, have it all there for you. Or it says you'll be able to copy and paste. If you've already started a report, you can copy and paste it into whatever you've started. So, okay. The quantitative data. So once again, we've talked about this. What was the total number of student interns? So these are all those questions that we've asked. So it's just a repeat, something to refer back to what is in that report. I think it's all pretty self-explanatory. Adherence to the VRS placement services, I talked through that. So again, VRS staff, as you're putting this together, if you need any help, you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm happy to help you. So putting it all together. So again, you're going to enter all the data into that report template, complete that overall summary at the end. Ensure that all local leadership team members review the draft before it's finalized. So you want everyone to review it. Again, don't forget that we ask that you submit them to us by June 30th. But you'll want to set up a time to review the report with the provider agency as a leadership team. And if there's any next steps to address that you're talking about, how you'll follow up on those things. And again, if you need any help, Lindsay and I are here to help support you through this. Now we
Alyssa,
have
can I
time
say
for more
one thing
questions. Yeah.
on the provider, like having that opportunity to talk through it with your leadership team and your provider? I can think of a few examples where we did that last year and it was really a beautiful conversation. We were able to talk more about here are things that we want more challenged in certain areas. And I think it was really nice. Yes, we have this opportunity during the provider evaluation, and you have that opportunity throughout the whole school year to talk with each other like you always do, to ensure that every partner is moving towards our interns' needs. And so I think, yes, this is the one time annually that you do the evaluation, but knowing that you're going to have those conversations throughout the year of greatness and maybe areas of improvement. Other questions you guys have?
I think I would just like to say that I think, sorry, that this process is really good because I don't know that we always pause to do evaluation work and understand like where we can be improving. And I like that this is built into the process. And so it makes a lot of sense to me. And then from state of Minnesota, we've gone through a few different provider agencies. And I mean, we've really leaned on Lindsay and Alyssa during that process to kind of find that right fit for us. But this is that regularly gathered data that can provide information to help you improve what you're doing. And so I think this is really good to do. It might seem annoying, but like, I think it's really good. Like, I like that we do it, so.
Thanks, Heather.
Thanks, Heather. Any other questions?
It's fun to see a couple of our providers on here too, so thank you for being here. Okay, well, I'm going to stop our recording if no one has any more questions.
I have one more
Oh,
question.
yes.
When are most people planning, or when do most people send out those surveys? I know they need to be back to us by June 5th in order to write
30th.
that report. So when do most other teams, decide to, hey, we should probably send them either early April, later April, or beginning of May? I just wonder what everyone else does, what works better.
Yeah, it is May 30th, but I'll turn it over to the
Yeah,
other
May 30th,
teams
sorry.
of what you guys are thinking. We did open it learning. Oh, Jenny, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. I would say I sent mine out earlier this fall, or I guess as soon as Alyssa and Lindsay had sent out the link, I sent it out this fall. I've sent it out a couple of times now. So I do need to just follow up maybe and find out how many have come back and follow up with. I know some of the families have responded that they finished it, but I've sent it out. And so then I need to figure out how many have sent it and then resend it again this spring.
Okay. And Jenny, if I could put your team on the spot,
Sure.
because Medtronic and I suppose Mike Mayo had the most response rates last year. So maybe if you want to share anything that you guys did that helped. I know, Mike, you made actual calls, anything that your teams did that other teams could learn from.
Well, I kind of, I took the bull by the horns, and I just kind of did it by myself because, my attention to detail, I was kind of behind the 8 ball. So I had to get it out there and get it done, and was actually late in submitting the report. But the turnaround time, yes, I used a lot of phone calls and email reminders that, hey, we need this back by this date. And if it was getting closer, I would call them and say, do you need me to help, walk through this, or you have any technical difficulties that I can maybe do this for you, or anything to help speed this process up, which really seemed to work very well. But that was with a group of parents who were extremely involved. So
Nice.
that was nice. Yeah, I just say follow up. When you're not getting the responses in a regular time, then you just need to keep on using different methods, either call, text, email, all of it, to keep it on the forefront of their minds that we need to get this done and in by May 30th.
Thanks, Mike.
So that really helped for me, I guess. I just did a lot of bothering. I felt like, okay, thank you.
And again, I want to emphasize to everybody, I know I said this already, but another option definitely would be to call somebody and just say, hey, explain what it's about and call the intern or their parents, whatever, both, and just say, hey, I've got a few questions and you can just complete it for them. So keep that in mind if that's going to make it easier.
Jenny, were you gonna chime in?
No, I was just gonna say it as Michael, that just a lot of bugging, a lot of follow-up, and I'm sure they got sick of my emails, but
Well, and if I remember correctly, they were anonymous, so you didn't really know
Right.
who had followed up and who had completed it and who didn't. So
right,
following up with all of them,
Yeah,
knowing that maybe 80% had completed already or whatever.
right.
right.
And Alyssa and I can look at the responses and kind of read some of them to your team, and you guys might be able to decipher that way, because I know we did that for a couple. But yeah, we don't know who it is.
Yeah,
I
if you.
think, I was just gonna say, I think part of the issue, sorry to interrupt, with that I had last year was, I'd send them to their email. Well, they didn't check their emails regularly when I'd call them and say, oh, did you ever receive that email? And that
Right.
seemed to be something that I had to just keep checking. Did you check your email? Oh, no, I never checked it. And okay, so that was kind of part of the hang up too, is just, calling, texting, and emailing. It seems to be a really good method.
Mhm.
So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Mike.
What I was going to say is if anyone at any time wants to know where things are at, like how many surveys have come in for your site for either of those 3 populations of people, feel free to reach out to me and I can get that for you at any time.
And we sent out the email or the link, the survey link, right, at different times. So whenever each student was about ready to be closing with VR is when I talked about it with them, so they were aware it was coming, and we sent it at that time. So it was early this, like midsummer, it was early this fall. So I don't know, we'll see if that tactic works better than last year. We'll see.
I like it. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop our recording.